Welcome back to the Caucus Corner, the podcast where policy meets the people. I am your host, Assemblywoman Micaela Salage, chair of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus. Each episode, we spotlight the issues shaping communities of color and elevate the voices driving real change across our state. This month, we're honoring Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, a time to celebrate the vibrant culture and deep contribution of New York's Asian communities. It's also a moment to reflect on the work still ahead to achieve true equity. Here in the legislature, our caucus fights year-round to make sure all marginalized communities are seen, heard, and served. In today's episode, we are taking a closer look at legislation aimed in improving the lives of Asian New Yorkers, from public health to education to cultural inclusion. And I'm really joined by some incredible guests who are helping lead the way. So let's get into it. First, I would like to introduce one of my favorite senators, Senator John Liu. Are you on the line?
I am, and apparently I'm the only state senator on the line, which is why you can say I'm one of your favorite.
Don't tell anyone else, all right? Just keep it between us and the listeners. Please introduce yourself.
I'm John Liu. I am a member of the state senate representing Flushing, Bayside, and Fresh Meadows, a big part of Queens. And I am proud to serve in the Senate. Education being one of my main portfolios. Education, as you know, is also one of the biggest issues for the AAPI community.
And we thank you for all your work. Next, we have on the line our great assembly member from Queens, Ron Kim.
Hello, Chairwoman. How are you?
I am doing well. Tell us a little bit about yourself to our listeners.
Hello, everybody. This is Ron Kim from Flushing, Queens District 40, covers Flushing, Whitestone, and I chair the Committee on Tourism that overlooks the arts, parks, and sports development for the state of New York.
And we thank you for all your contributions. Next on the line, we have the interim dean at CUNY, John Chin. Would you like to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. I'm John Chin. I'm the interim dean of the CUNY Asian American Asian Research Institute, which is also known as ARI. We're a CUNY-wide institute that serves all of CUNY, but we're based at Queens College, one of the 25 campuses at CUNY. ARI is a 24-year-old CUNY Research Institute that serves New York City and New York State by facilitating and disseminating research on issues and concerns relevant to Asia and Asian America.
So we all appreciate you being on the line and really giving your insightful information. Representation of communities is so important, and that's what the caucus is really all about. So happy AAPI Heritage Month to all of you. And so what does this month mean to you?
Well, the month of May has been declared AAPI Heritage Month by the last many presidents. I think it's 40 years at this point, actually maybe a little more. And AAPI, although many people still don't understand what the acronym means, it stands for Asian American Pacific Islander. In the past, it's been Asian Pacific American. In the past, it's been other acronyms. But the new acronym is now AANHPI, which is Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Island. So that is what we're commemorating, and we're celebrating the accomplishments that our communities have made over the years up to today. But it also reminds us that we still have a fair amount of work to do to achieve true equality and achieve the American dream.
Yeah, I absolutely echo what the senator says. For me, this month has been about us finally belonging to this country as an Asian American, and my generation and so many other generations before us, they had to compete like hell to try to fit in, and just went through so much stuff, generation of generation. But we're finally at a point where not only the month of May, but as Asian Americans, we can walk tall and proud in this country, and this is a time to really celebrate all of our accomplishments and letting the next generation know that you no longer have to compete to fit in, but you truly belong in this country.
Yeah, I would echo what the senator and assemblyman have said. It's an opportunity for us to have pride in our own communities. I wish this were something that existed when I was a kid growing up in the suburbs of Pittsburgh in an all-white community. Um, and it really combats this, idea that Asians are the perpetual foreigner, that no matter how many generations we've been here, that we're still somehow foreign and not belonging in this country. So it recognizes that we belong.
And that's such an excellent point, because we always have to uplift visibility for different marginalized communities, and especially for the Asian population. I know there's always an interpretation, and I guess you guys can speak more about it, but both of you, the assembly member, the senator, and also CUNY has done so much to build capacity so that we can get some bills done, some legislation done. So I don't know if you want to talk about ways that we've really increased the visibility and political and policy power of the Asian community.
I think you talked about legislation and making an impact, and that's precisely what our jobs, collective jobs, are. This is a month where we really focus on the AAPI community, but just as we say, February is not the only time that we celebrate Black history in America, or September to October Hispanic history. This is we should celebrate and try to do more all year round, but the month of May is when we really focus on what's happening. There are many events that take place in this month, and it spans from legislative accomplishments to actually using this month to kind of focus more attention and push through new legislation. We're all working on having Asian American history taught in public schools in the state of New York. And so that's going to be a focus for the remainder of this legislative session through the month of May.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Asian Americans, we're having a moment, and I think from when you look at culturally, we've got Crazy Rich Asians to Korean pop dramas, and every time you turn on anything, now we know that Asians are very visible, but in the same token, so many of our vulnerable populations and communities are getting left behind. And people forget that 1 out of 4 Asian American older adults live in poverty, and they suffer from the most depression, anxiety, mental health issues. 1 out of 6 Asian Americans live in poverty. We're the fastest growing group of individuals that live in poverty out of all racial demographics in New York City, but people don't know that. And as a result, we do have a capacity crisis. We pass many, many bills that should be helping, but we don't have a public structural capacity right now to fully support our communities. And it takes us years and years to even get some funding for groups like ARI at an institutional level. But we are getting there inch by inch. And that's why the work of Senator John New and I and others, not just legislatively, to build that public capacity that Asian Americans deserve at this time.
Yeah, and I know that there's a bill that you have, the AANHPI Leadership Institute bill. I know there's a lot of Leadership Institute bills out there, but particularly, why is this one important to you?
Okay, so that's a very important bill. What that does is it sets up a new leadership institute within the State University of New York, much like there's a Hispanic Leadership Institute. And in fact, that was the first leadership institute. And now there is an AAPI Leadership Institute, as well as a Black Leadership Institute. These 3 organizations and the enabling legislation seek to have SUNY develop leadership, faculty, and administrators within the state university campuses, and using under the lead of the Hispanic Leadership Institute, which has done great wonders in elevating Hispanic faculty and administrators to higher positions and positions of influence within SUNY. We seek to do the same for through the Black Leadership Institute as well as the AAPI Leadership Institute. And so that's very meaningful. But there's also, I do want to point out that John Chin is the interim dean of ARI, which is which is a longstanding institute within the City University of New York. That also has its separate line item budget, and it's something that we're looking to build over time.
I just want to say Ari is very grateful for the efforts of Senator Liu, Assemblyman Kim, and the other folks in the Asian Pacific American Task Force who've really advocated for sufficient funding for our institute to do its work.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off the Ari comment, Mikhail, is just for years when we needed sound, sustainable information that impacts Asian American healthcare, our social services. At best, we would get some contracts here and there on RFP every couple of years. But now imagine having a consistent, structured, government-backed body dedicated to collecting all the data that we need to fully understand the trends and what's going on, so we can come back and make the laws and build that capacity that we need to fully serve our communities. So that's why it's so important to fully fund ARI and other Asian American institutions at the government level and making sure that we have that line item every single year.
And as you said, information is important because there is so many different pieces of misinformation that exist, especially when it comes to healthcare. And as you know, typically when we talk about healthcare, the model is not people like us, people of color. We're often left out in clinical trials and in other facets. And so I know for y'all, you have an important BMI bill that I'm sure you could elaborate on, because we know that diabetes is not just a monolith, that, you know, for different communities, diabetes impacts them in different ways.
Yeah, this is something very personal to me. Senator John Liu and I have this bill that would mandate insurance companies to do more for Asian American communities and start testing and really give early access to prevent the formation of diabetes by testing at 23 BMI. And for me, you know, my mom, as all of you know, passed away during COVID, and the biggest factor of why she couldn't recover was because she had diabetes. And all of her life, she never got the proper early access treatment. And I just imagine if she had access to early health care, she could have been in a much healthier state. And there's no reason why Asian Americans living now, should not have that kind of access points.
And
Yeah, Mickey, I really appreciate you bringing up that bill, because it's a high priority for Ron and I to get passed. Ron's already talked about what that bill is. The reality is that diabetes is unfortunately too common in the AAPI community. And not only is it too common, but it is not detected until far too late for too many people. Ron mentioned his mom. My dad, who passed away last year, he also was diabetic. And a lot of people in the community are not screened for this because they don't have BMI. Well, they don't have BMI that is high enough at the level where insurance coverage is mandated right now. It's mandated at Ron, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's at BMI somewhere between 25 and 30.
Correct.
Whereas many Asian Americans have lower BMIs and still have diabetes, or the onset of diabetes is there. And so we just want insurance companies to understand, we're not saying do this for Asian Americans, we're saying do this for people. And among Asian Americans, diabetes, the onset of diabetes comes on at much, much lower BMI levels.
And the statistics are really damning. 48% of Asian American adults in New York City either have diabetes or are at risk for developing. And that is really a statistic that underscores a significant public health concern. As a community, we want to help. Like, what's the status of the bill? What can folks do to help elevate this topic and get it done this session?
Yeah, it's bill number 1206, Senate bill number 634, just getting people to sponsor and support the bill and letting leadership know that this is important to our community, especially this month. It would be tremendous if we can get this bill done and the Asian American history curriculum bill done. Those would be two big wins for our community.
And so our listeners have heard that's the charge. Let's go on to another topic. We always want to highlight the successes, and I know that as a community, you fought really hard for Lunar New Year to be considered a holiday. And so, kudos to our colleague Grace Lee, who helped in this effort as well, Assemblymember Grace Lee. I know, John, you were very instrumental in this. How does CUNY and SUNY recognize Lunar New Year on their campus?
Well, they don't actually. They allow students to have their excused absences or to trade a day, but there's no recognition. There's no specific recognition of Lunar New Year's or Diwali for that matter.
Mm.
So these are two bills that we've passed. They are now official public school holidays, but public school meaning through high school. But we still need SUNY and CUNY to recognize these holidays as well. So we passed legislation requiring such in the Senate, and it's just a matter of time before it passes the entire legislature.
And that's a shame because these students are having to choose between their holiday and their education, which other communities don't have that choice. They could celebrate
Don't have
both.
to make that choice. That's
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
Oh, could I jump in and just to let people know that CUNY now recognizes Diwali and Lunar New Year as official holidays? I don't think SUNY does, but CUNY has begun to, following in step with the public schools of New York.
That is great news, Professor.
Yeah. That's why we love CUNYs, right?
Yeah, CUNY is almost 23% Asian American, and that's out of 240,000 students across 25 campuses. So it's affecting a lot of people. I was just thinking about, what if we held classes on Christmas? There would be an uproar, right? So that's what people are experiencing when they have to go to class on Lunar New Year or Diwali or Eid.
That's exactly right.
There would be a revolt if that was the case,
Yes.
And so we should stand by our Asian brothers and sisters and help them get that. And really, does this really pave the way for more cultural visibility for other issues pertaining to the community?
100%. I mean, this year there were classrooms up in upstate New York and Albany where there weren't any Asian American students. But my colleagues were telling me, all these parents and students had the day off, and now now they're researching what is Lunar New Year. Some of them never even heard of Lunar New Year. Now they get to learn about this, not only this holiday, but they're spending the day appreciating and learning more about Asian American history and culture. It's happening organically, and the impact is intangible, right? And now it's normalizing and making sure that all Americans in New York, all New Yorkers understand Asian Americans are an indelible part of the New York State culture and history.
Yeah, that would be my hope that, because people have to grapple with the holiday either by being out of school or if you're a faculty member having to accommodate a student who has a religious observance, that it might motivate people to learn a little bit about different cultures. And I think in the end, it's kind of a humanizing process, for people who've been stereotyped and misunderstood, for people to take an interest in what their lives are like, I think is great.
And, just to end on our last question, what other barriers still exist when it comes to equitable representation for Asian Americans in state government? What could we do more to help uplift this community?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'll just end by emphasizing capacity. I've been talking about it for years. Why is it that when we go to, suburban counties, all these services are guaranteed and provided by local governments. But when it comes to our immigrant Asian communities, we punt it out to third parties, and then there's no oversight. And when and we allow third-party contractors to pick winners and losers, we have to reach a point at some point where we have to guarantee those services by having the full backing of government. That takes a lot of effort, but I think now is the time to build that kind of capacity to guarantee that our seniors and children, after schools, everyone gets the level of service that they deserve.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I also do think that we need people in policymaking positions, whether they be elected officials, more legislators. In Albany, our representation is still woefully inadequate compared to the state population of AAPI, as well as in the executive and judicial branches, commissioners and judges at all levels. We do need more AAPIs in all of these kinds of positions. And, representation definitely matters.
Oh, by the way, John has been so instrumental, Senator John Liu, in not just helping to elect people like me, but so many judges now over the last 10 years he's been part of. So he is the OG, not the old guy. He is the original OG, and he without him we would not have the amount of representation. He still continues to fight every day to make sure that we have that kind of representation. So thank you, John Liu.
Thanks, Ron. I am the OG, the old guy,
Oh,
and
no.
we'll continue to expand our capacity in every manner.
We appreciate your legacy. Mr. Chin, any comments on this?
I would just, emphasize the piece about funding and capacity, and just to thank Senator Liu and Assemblyman Kim, and also Assemblymember Grace Lee, the chair of the Asian Pacific American Task Force. So they were able to pass historic legislation for the AAPI Equity Budget Coalition, which provided millions of dollars of funding to community-based organizations across the state. But it's still not at the level of equity with other populations, but it's a great, great start. So just wanted to give a shout out to that.
We have some great representation in the caucus, y'all on this podcast, as well as those in our legislature. So I thank you all for being here and really making this conversation fun and informative. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
As fun as three Asian guys can make it, Mickey.
Yeah.